The room was completely silent, except for the hum of the fluorescent lights. But the dog in the corner didn't seem to hear anything at all. She wasn't sleeping, and she wasn't resting. She was sitting upright, her nose pressed tightly into the cold, concrete corner of the kennel. For hours she didn't move a single muscle, acting as if the wall was the only safe place in a world that had terrified her. Most dogs in the shelter bark for attention or jump at the gate when people walk by, desperate to be seen and saved. But she wanted to be invisible, curling herself into the smallest possible ball, trying to disappear into the gray cement blocks. We call this behavior shut down, a psychological state where a dog's brain simply stops processing the world because the trauma is too great. It is heartbreaking to watch because it is not just fear. It is a complete and total resignation to a life of hopelessness. She had been brought in by animal control after being found in an abandoned basement where she had likely lived in darkness for years. When we opened her kennel door, she didn't turn around to look at us. She just pressed her forehead harder against the wall. We named her Luna because she seemed to be living on the dark side of the moon, far away from any warmth or light. The first time I tried to sit with her, I stayed on the opposite side of the room, barely breathing, trying to make myself small. I sat there for 60 minutes, reading a book out loud in a soft, monotone voice, hoping the rhythm would soothe her nerves. She didn't twitch an ear or shift her weight. She remained a statue of misery, frozen in her self-imposed prison. We placed a bowl of high-value wet food near her paws, the kind of smell that usually makes any dog drool instantly. She ignored it completely while we were in the room, refusing to eat until the lights went out and she was sure she was alone. Day after day, the routine was the same. I would enter, sit on the floor, and read, while Luna stared blankly at the wall. It is incredibly draining to pour your love and energy into a creature that refuses to acknowledge your existence. But we knew that beneath that frozen exterior, there was a heart that was beating, a soul that was waiting to be unlocked. We tried different treats, different toys, and even bringing in a calm dog to show her that humans could be trusted. Nothing worked. She remained in her corner, trembling slightly only when a loud noise echoed through the busy shelter hallway. On the 10th day, I decided to change my approach and simply lay down flat on the floor, making myself lower than her. This is a signal in dog language that says I am not a threat, and it changes the power dynamic in the room. I lay there for an hour, my cheek against the cold floor, watching her back, sending her silent telepathic messages of safety. Suddenly I saw her left ear rotate backward, just a fraction of an inch, listening to the sound of my breathing. It was a microscopic movement, but in the world of a shut-down dog, it was a massive conversation. She was finally acknowledging that I was there, and more importantly, that she was curious about why I wasn't hurting her. 2 weeks passed, and the wall dog became famous among the volunteers, who all rooted for her silent battle against fear. We started leaving the kennel door open while we sat outside, giving her the choice to leave, but she never took it. The wall was her shield, her fortress, and leaving it meant exposing her vulnerable heart to a world that had broken her. Then on day 22, something happened that made me hold my breath and freeze in place. I was reading quietly when I heard the soft scuffle of paws shifting on the concrete floor behind me. I didn't turn around. I kept reading, knowing that direct eye contact would send her retreating back into her shell. She took one step backward away from the wall, and then another, creating a foot of space between her nose and the corner. She sat there, looking at my back, assessing me, deciding if I was the monster she feared or the savior she needed. It took another week of patience before she finally mustered the courage to sniff the tip of my shoe. I felt her cold, wet nose touch the rubber of my sneaker, and tears instantly sprang to my eyes. She pulled back quickly, as if she had burned herself, but she didn't go back to the wall. She stayed in the center of the room. That was the turning point. The moment the ice began to crack and the real Luna started to peek through. The next day, she ate a piece of chicken from my hand, taking it so gently that I barely felt her teeth. Her eyes, which had been dull and empty, started to show flecks of amber light, revealing a deep intelligence. We decided it was time to try a leash, a terrifying object that often triggers panic in dogs with a history of abuse. When I clipped it on, she froze again, her body going stiff, her eyes wide with the memory of past restraint. I didn't pull. I just let the leash lie loose on the ground, connecting us but not controlling her. We sat like that for hours, just existing together, until she realized that the leash wasn't a punishment. The first walk to the outside play yard was a slow, agonizing process of taking 2 steps forward and 1 step back. She was terrified of the sky, the wind, the sound of birds. Everything was an overload for her sensory system. But when her paws touched the grass for the first time, I saw a physical change ripple through her body. She sniffed a blade of grass, then a dandelion, her tail giving a tiny, almost invisible twitch at the base. It wasn't a wag yet, but it was the promise of a wag, a sign that joy was possible. We spent the afternoon in the sun, just sitting in the grass, watching the clouds move, letting the fresh air heal her lungs. She looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time, and I saw the thank you in her gaze. Over the next month, Luna's transformation was like watching a flower bloom in slow motion after a long winter. She started to greet me at the kennel door, her tail swaying loosely, her mouth open in a relaxed, happy pant. She discovered that she loved to run, doing zoomies around the yard with a clumsy, puppy-like coordination. It was hard to reconcile this happy, bouncing dog with the statue that had stared at the wall for 30 days. But the psychological scars of trauma run deep, and there were still days when the shadows would return. If a door slammed or a stranger moved too fast, she would revert to her corner, pressing her face into the safety of the wall. We had to be her anchor during those storms, reminding her that the wall was no longer necessary for survival. She learned to seek comfort in our arms instead of the concrete, burying her head in our chests when she was scared. This shift from self-reliance to trust is the ultimate goal of rehabilitation, and Luna had achieved it against all odds. Finding a home for a dog like Luna requires a special kind of person, someone with infinite patience and a quiet soul. We didn't want a chaotic household with loud kids. We needed a sanctuary where she could continue to blossom. A retired librarian named Sarah came to meet her, sitting quietly on the floor, just as I had done weeks ago. Luna didn't hide behind me. She walked up to Sarah and sniffed her hand, sensing a kindred spirit. Sarah didn't try to pet her immediately. She just smiled and whispered, "I know what it's like to want to hide." The connection was instant and profound, a silent understanding between 2 beings who valued peace and gentleness. On the day Luna left the shelter, she paused at the exit and looked back at the kennel that had been her prison. She looked at the corner where she had spent 30 days staring at nothing, and then she turned her back on it forever. She walked out into the sunlight with her head held high, her tail wagging, ready to start a life of seeing the world. We received a photo from Sarah a month later that made the entire staff cry happy tears in the break room. It showed Luna sleeping on a giant fluffy bed in a sunbeam, completely stretched out on her back, belly exposed. Sleeping on the back is the ultimate sign of trust and safety for a dog. It means they have zero fear of attack. The caption read, "She doesn't stare at walls anymore. She stares out the window at the squirrels." Luna's journey teaches us an important lesson about the power of patience and the resilience of the spirit. It teaches us that sometimes the ones who are the quietest are the ones who are screaming the loudest for help. It is easy to walk past the shut-down dog in the corner and choose the happy jumping puppy in the next cage. But saving a dog like Luna gives you a reward that is indescribable, the privilege of watching a soul return to life. She taught me that trauma does not have to be a life sentence, and that love can penetrate even the thickest walls. There are thousands of wall dogs in shelters right now, overlooked because they are too scared to ask for attention. They are waiting for someone to stop, to sit down, and to wait for them to find the courage to turn around. If Luna's story touched your heart, please consider looking for the shy dog the next time you visit a shelter. You might just find a best friend who will be eternally grateful for the patience you showed them. Please like this video to help the algorithm share Luna's story, so more people understand the behavior of shutdown dogs. Subscribe to the Second Chance Sanctuary to witness more incredible transformations of the underdogs who need us most. And tell us in the comments, have you ever rehabilitated a shy or fearful animal? What was your breakthrough moment? Thank you for watching. Thank you for caring. And remember that sometimes the biggest miracles happen in the quietest moments. We will see you in the next rescue video, continuing our mission to save them all, one broken soul at a time.